Okay, so in previous sessions, we've explored the internal ball to move the external ball. And we've looked at internal ball moving external ball. We've looked at yang circles, yin circles, spirals. So getting from here to here, that would be yang circle. The opposite would be yin circle. We've looked at the transition, the S transition, to make it into yin-yang, and even an infinity patterns. And so I think today what we'll do is we're going to omit the upper body, and we're going to look at the internal ball sitting on the legs, and then the legs, how they prop up, support, influence, and guide the internal ball and the Dantian. So we've discussed Taiji walking, and when we look at Taiji walking, say we're going somewhere, we're slowly moving the legs. If we omit the torso and if we omit the the arms and the hands, then we see that we're guiding the Dantian, and the legs are guiding and moving the Dantian along the path, whether you're zigzagging or going straight. So that means that as you're walking, right, we're omitting the arms, but as you're walking, let's say we're rocking backward and forward. That means that the Dantian is going to be rocking backward and forward. If we squat down, the Dantian sinks, and we rise, the Dantian rises. So the legs facilitate all of this movement of the Dantian. We bend the knees, bend the ankles, we get the descending, we push forward and push back, and we get rocking back and forth. Now, when we start to step, let's say this back foot coming forward, comes to center and steps, the Dantian now starts to move along a path as this foot steps forward, right? And then we can look at it this way, right? As we're progressing this way, Dantian is moving along a path. So when we're rocking, it's not linear. There's a lot of straight lines, but it's not linear, right? When we're rocking back and forth, actually what we're trying to do we're actually also trying to make it circular. So let's just do this pattern. When we're rocking back and forth, there's a tilting of the pelvis, right? The tilting of the pelvis, let's say we tilt the pelvis forward, that actually gives us an angle of the torso that opens up the Mingmen, right? Because we have the the curve in the back. When we tilt the pelvis forward, it opens up the Mingmen area, gives us that direction. Here's the head. And so if the butt sticks out and the pelvis and tailbone go back, then we get this forward. We get this forward motion, and then that gives us the arch in the lower back. That actually supports the arch in the lower back, right? And so when we look at spinal waving, the tailbone going forward and tailbone going back, we see that this opens, this articulates, the spinal, what do you call it? The vertebrae soften, and they can move in that nice wave-like motion, right? So in the same way that we have softness in the spine, we're also looking for softness in the hips, softness in the abdomen, softness in the lower back and spine. And so there's not, going back to the original point, it's not necessarily a linear motion, but it's circular. And so when we look at yin and yang, and when we look at transitioning, and we're searching for movement, whether it's, so let's talk about Tai Chi walking. Let's just get specific and talk about Tai Chi walking. When we look at Tai Chi walking, we also want to move the Dantian propped on the legs in this same fashion, whether it's yin circles, yang circles, transitioning from yin to yang. If you're rocking, you can feel the yin to yang exchange. If you're just walking forward, it might be more yang, right? So it becomes a little bit more subtle. Like we can draw really large motions and circles with the arms and with the hands. But as we know, the motions and the movements can be quite subtle, or they can be drastic. But for the most part, what we want is just the intelligence and the awareness of what the Dantian is doing and how it's influencing movement and influencing the rest of the body. So we're going to look at these patterns, right? We're going to look at the Dantian in a yang circle. We're going to look at the Dantian in a yin circle. We're going to look at the S transition. We're going to look at the yin yang symbol, and also we're going to look at the infinity symbol, which I already drew, right? And so what is this for? This is because what does this symbol represent? It represents change. It represents movement. It represents constant flow and non-linear movement, non-stagnation. And so this is essentially, if we want it in life, if we want it in the mind, if we want it in the spine, if we want it in the movement, in the hands of what we're doing, then we want it to come from the Dantian. We want that flow, we want the exchange, we want the transition, all to be circular in the Dantian. So let's look at how we're going to do that with the Dantian propped up and supported by the legs. Okay. So before we go into the isolating Dantian and looking at the legs, let's go ahead and take some time to revisit and review what we've done before. So let's soften the knees and soften the ankles. Get a sense of the weight in the feet. Get a sense of buoyancy, softness. This helps to inform song Hua, and also get a sense of the Dantian now, the torso, sitting on the hips, sitting on the legs, okay? And so now let's start to articulate the abdomen, use the tailbone if needed, engage the abdominal muscles if needed, let the legs respond appropriately. And start to, I always kind of think of like an engine, just start the engine, get the engine going. You can maybe envision a train and how those, I don't even know what you would call them, but those mechanisms, and you can start to see how it slowly starts to respond to the conductor accelerating, and then when the train is going super fast, those things are just, you can barely see their movement. But so we're just starting to get the engine of the Dantian rolling and going. Get a sense of the direction and a yin or a yang aspect. So most of the time we start with yang circles. So yang circle in the Dantian. And now start to get a sense of that movement coming up into the spine, articulating the spine and the vertebrae, softly responding and responding appropriately. You might feel like some jerkiness, or you might feel a little bit of pain. That's a signal, that's a sign that there's some reason for stagnation, old injury, chronic usage and fatigue. It's hard to say really unless you know what your injury is. Then that movement starts to come into the shoulders. And so the mind can start to enter the shoulders as the movement starts to manifest into and animate the shoulders. And then we can start to animate the arms and allow the arms to respond. So let's go ahead and allow the arms to draw some yang circles in response to the Dantian. Dantian guiding the movement, initiating the movement, and torso and arms and hands responding to the Dantian. Inhaling, opening, lifting, rising. Exhaling, closing, descending, falling, relaxing and releasing. Inhaling, opening, lifting, rising. And exhaling, descending, falling, closing, releasing and relaxing. And let's change directions. The next time that the arms are down, let's go ahead and open, lift, and rise in the opposite direction. Now we're drawing yin circles. And we're just doing a quick review here. So yin and yang circles. Now we're going to put one hand on the abdomen and isolate the other. So if you want to mirror me, you can put your left hand on your abdomen and allow the right hand to respond to the Dantian. So now we can draw 3 dimensions. So lifting, rising of the Dantian in connection with the legs gives us lifting, rising with the hand. Rotating left to right gives us horizontal movement of the arm and the hand. Now, when we combine those 2 planes of movement in a way that allows me to draw a yang circle, I get yang circles manifesting in the arm and the hand. Inhaling, lifting, rising. Exhaling, sinking, falling. And let's review the yin circle and the yin direction. When arm is down, initiate the other direction with the Dantian first. And sinking, falling. Good. Now we have to connect those directions, those circles. And so the S transition is going to allow us to do that. Here, though, see if you can use the Dantian to initiate the S transition. So that's the important thing, using the Dantian to initiate all movement and guide all movement. You can do a 6 o'clock engagement, a 12 o'clock engagement. And now go ahead and apply those S transitions to draw your yin-yang circles freely. Good. And we're moving along here, switching hands. Yang circles with the other hand. Let the Dantian initiate. Yin circles, changing direction. S transitions to change direction. And free flow yin-yang circles. Okay. Well, let's move on. Just a quick review there. We notice that the legs are still involved and the legs do the guiding of the Dantian. Okay. So now this starts to bring into question and gives us a little bit more clarity and awareness of stances. So if I'm rocking back and forth here, we see this as the Dantian moving back and forth, right? What are the purposes of moving backward and forward? For martial qigong, the backward movement is a retreat, or it's a coiling, or a storing of energy and intention. And then the moving forward is a manifesting, it's an expression, it's an opening movement forward, right? There's a yin yang aspect to that. In, coiling, coiled, out, uncoiling, manifesting, unwinding. And so remember I said that the movement is not so linear, but rather it should still be circular. So for example, when I'm coiling and retreating back, I'm actually sinking as well. And now when I'm coming forward, there's a little bit of a rise, not much. It's not a standing up and uprising, but it's an advancing, and it's a rise also that is going to eventually sink and retract and come down. So now we start to see this more of like an elliptical type of movement in our rocking. It's more of an elliptical, a shape of an ellipse. So when we think of rocking forward and back, we can get a sense of linear movement. But once we start to apply some circular movement to it, then it starts to engage the legs differently. So when we sink down, the joints close. The joints need to be relaxed. There's a rooting, there's a sinking, there's a connecting to the earth. And then when we manifest and grow and come out, there's those energies manifesting and growing. I'm going to change legs. Let's experience that on the other side. So in order to feel this, we revisit that principle of sinking to gravity, not necessarily squatting, but sinking to gravity. The sinking to gravity is a byproduct of relaxing the tissues. Typically, that's on the exhale. So the cue to exhale, release, and relax allows for that sinking to gravity. So now we are drawing that shape of an ellipse with the Dantian. And that's provided that the hips are soft, the hips are responding in a soft way. The tailbone is moving forward, tailbone is moving back. The lower back, you may also be maybe opening and closing. You can even put your hand there. And maybe even the abdomen is responding in a way that you're not quite familiar with. And to distinguish the feeling and the patterns, get a sense of what it feels like to move forward and back. And then draw that ellipse and feel the difference in the ellipse. Try to get a sense of the energies in the feet and how the energy in the feet responds to your movement, in the sense that you're feeling pressure and you're feeling torque from at the connection of the feet to the ground. So just right under the feet, essentially. Try to get a sense of the energies that are sort of informing you of pressures and torques and directions of those energies as well. So, for example, when you advance forward and rock forward, you feel that pressure in the back foot. When you set the weight forward and before you start to advance backward or to retreat backward, you feel pressure in the front foot in contact with the ground. So now we're mostly drawing yang circles there. That doesn't mean that we never draw yin circles. Let's see what it would feel like to draw yin circles with the Dantian. So if I were exaggerating, this would be yang. And then to switch direction, this would be yin. So I'm trying to exaggerate the movement, but get a sense of the subtlety of yin direction and how it changes the sensations in the hips, in the knees, and in the feet. Inhaling, coming back, exhaling, coming forward. And change feet at any time. I'm going to go ahead and switch stances now. So what you need to get acclimated to is your range of motion. When you are comfortable with your range of motion, you can draw an ellipse that feels comfortable for you. Otherwise, you restrict, and you may restrict the movement, and so it won't be circular. But the more that you are just trying to draw the circles and your feet, and you're getting feedback from the tissues, the more you can round off those edges. So now we've got the yin circles and the yang circles. Now we want to draw the yin yang. Yin yang, or infinity symbol, right? So we drew that out here in this picture. What would it feel like to draw the infinity symbol now, or even yin yang? So take a second and see if you can draw those patterns. And we're still in mountain climbing stance. And remember, you can draw small circles, you can draw large circles, you can have small transitions or large transitions, all within your comfortable range of motion. And again, change legs as needed, change legs as desired. So the idea of transition and the idea of yin yang is you want to be able to employ the transition anywhere. So for example, I'm showing the transition here as you're moving forward and back. As you're back here or as you're forward here, you also want to try to employ transitions. So for example, maybe you move back, you want to employ a transition there and see what that feels like. Rather than drawing a transition, a large transition, you want to have, maybe you're right at you've rocked forward and you're kind of right at the edge. See if you can employ a transition there or draw a yin yang symbol there. And vice versa, as you're back, leaning back, sitting back, see if you can draw a yin yang or a infinity symbol there as well. After we do that, then we can start to look at how we bring the feet together. Because we're not always stationary. Eventually we walk. So after we do that, whether we want to bring the front foot to the back foot or bring the back foot to the front foot, what is the best movement of the Dantian that's going to give us root and maintaining root? Because that's essentially when we move a leg, let back leg either forward or front leg either backward, we're uprooting one of our posts. And so it's a vulnerability that we have to be conscious and aware of. So likely if the front leg is going to the back, then we're going to want to employ some sort of downward direction of the Dantian. If we're going to be bringing the back leg to the front leg, we're going to want to employ some sort of downward direction of the Dantian, so that when this leg comes up, we're rooted, because we always want to have an energy of down, sinking the mind, sinking the energy to maintain connection with the ground. So if we try to move a leg and Dantian is coming up, then that's how you get swept. That's how you lose balance. That's how you fall. And so that's why, for the most part, you want a downward sort of energy and focus of the Dantian as you're bringing either the foot back or stepping. That's why we lose our balance when we're walking sometimes, because the mind's energy is forward. And actually what that does is it creates this energy. And so that's why a lot of times if we hit something, we trip. So now we're looking at what's the pattern and what's the movement that's going to best facilitate root and being grounded as we step. So let's say we bring the back foot forward. Say we bring the back foot forward. Sometimes we look at pouring the sand. So when we rock backward, we pour the sand into this back leg. That's going to be a prime opportunity to bring the front leg to the back because this leg's empty and it'll slide back. If we're rocking forward, that's going to be a prime opportunity to bring the back leg up because it's empty. Also, before we step, let's say I want to bring the back foot up, take a look at my front foot. I'm going to have to adjust the front foot to receive my back leg. Okay. I don't have to adjust it, but it depends on what I want to do. I can leave it and cross step, go to cross step. But remember, what we're looking at is the Dantian's movement. So let's look at Dantian's movement with the intention of stepping back. What's the Dantian's movement? And then to even go forward, what might be the Dantian's movement before my leg goes back out? So bringing the back leg in, Dantian forward, bring the back leg in, and maybe even back. So now what we're going to do is try to maintain that rhythm of rocking, that ellipse, and then either bring the back foot up or the front foot back. And one thing you may want to do is when you bring the feet together, get a sense of your circle and your abdominal movement. There, you could even draw those Dantian circles and allow the spine to articulate. And then when you're ready, use one of those movements to either step forward or step back. You could even maybe throw in the horse stance in there. Throw in the horse stance and then see what it feels like to rock from one leg to the other, bringing one leg in and then extending it back out. Always connecting to some sort of movement and circle. Okay. So let's take a break there. Let's see if there's any questions. Now that we've done rocking forward and back, we've brought the back foot forward, we've brought the front foot back, we've brought the back foot forward, we've had the feet together. All the while we've sustained yin-yang, or maybe infinity, and kept the movement continuous and kept the movement circular. You may have been able to utilize and employ some transitions, very small, subtle transitions, anywhere along the spectrum as you're rocking forward and back. Now we're going to advance forward and walk forward and keep the movement circular, keep it consistent, keep it flowing, all the while advancing forward, walking forward, and doing Tai Chi walking. So the first step of Tai Chi walking is just to kick the leg out and drop the heel and roll through the foot. And this is the most simple and basic. We start standing feet together. What we need to do is balance and post on one leg. So if you want to mirror me, then you'll balance on your right leg. Notice what the Dantian may want to do. Notice what the hips may want to do. So as you're sinking the weight, you might open Mingmen. That might initiate a yin circle or yang circle. We're lifting the knee, kicking the leg out. Try to get a sense of what circle is happening as you're advancing forward, rolling through the foot. You might have an upward energy as the back leg starts to lift, lifting the back knee to come up. You want to sink down and drop the heel. Connect to the Dantian here, connect to the tailbone as you move forward. Notice how if you don't step through, you can simply and easily rock forward and rock back. That's because we are connected to circular movement. We can easily transition. Now let's go ahead and continue advancing forward. Lifting the back heel and then lifting that back knee. Inhaling, exhaling down, dropping the heel, sinking the weight. Lifting back heel again, transitioning to that front foot, lifting the heel. Now we're going to walk backwards. So let's see what this is like. Try to connect to circular movement, dropping that toe, that back toe, rolling through the foot. Relax hips, Dantian. Lifting that front toe now, sliding that foot back. Feel Dantian. Dropping that foot back, rolling through the foot. Engaged, aware of Dantian, lifting the front toe now, lifting that front foot. Stepping back. Notice you're able to rock forward or rock backward here because you're soft in the hips, soft in the knees, soft in the ankles. You can steer the Dantian easily, freely. The next step is now to diagonal step. So what we're going to do is turn that front foot. Bring the back foot into the front, bring the feet together. And now we're going to slide the front foot out. Get a sense of Dantian here, any circular movement you can employ. Rotate the waist. You're turning into a mountain climbing stance now. Lifting the back heel. Bringing that feet together. Sinking the weight there. Sliding out. Let's see if we can rock forward and rock back from that front leg to that back leg. Let's say we want to rock back now. Connect that to a circle or an ellipse. Bring that front foot in. Let the feet distribute evenly, the weight. And now let's step back. Now as we step back, relax the hips, utilize Dantian movement to turn to horse stance here. Now you should feel like you're free to rock to the back foot or to the front foot. You might even feel like you can rotate to a mountain climbing stance in the backward direction. But for the sake of this exercise, we're going to rotate in the direction we started to go. And now we're going to rock forward, lift that back heel, bring that back foot up, and slide and go through. Let's go ahead and rotate here, mountain climbing stance. Maybe you want to reorient yourself to elliptical movement. So you rock forward, you rock backward. Want to get a sense of flow, continuity. And you want to bring that back foot up now. So rock forward, sink the weight into that front foot, lift the back heel, slide back foot up. You can leave it there. All right, you're comfortable, you're rooted there. That front foot can go forward, it could go back, or to the side rather, it can go back, right? Well, let's go ahead and for the sake of walking here and staying in frame, we're going to go back. Notice we're familiar with rocking forward and back in mountain climbing stance here. Let's transition to horse stance. So use circular movement, transition to horse stance, pivot on the heel. Nice, comfortable horse stance there. And then the next thing we're going to do is bring that front foot to the back foot. Bring the feet together. Whenever you're ready, get a sense of the feet are rooted, you have your momentum, the weight is planted, dragging that front foot back, and then go ahead and slide it back. Now we're in mountain climbing stance. Now you're comfortable here again because you're familiar with rocking forward, rocking back. Let's go ahead and transition again to horse stance. We're going to do one more step. We're going to bring that front foot to the back and go ahead and pass through and diagonal step to the back in a mountain climbing stance. You can easily rock backward because you're familiar with that. Rotate the feet on the heels. Now you're in a comfortable horse stance. We're going to bring that front foot back now, and we're going to bring the feet together. So go ahead and do that. go ahead and line up the feet together, and rise up. So now we we advanced forward, we utilized yin yang and infinity patterns to, first exercise was we stepped forward, kicking the leg, and that pretty much, put us on a forward path. But with the next drill, the drill after that, we went into horse stance, rotated to mountain climbing stance. We were facing forward that way, and then slid into horse stance here, then rotated into mountain climbing stance there. So you can see how we progressed forward and through. And then we even walked backward to our original spot. So hope you're able to feel the yin yang there, feel the infinity there as you were stepping and advancing and rocking forward, either forward or back, whether you're in a mountain climbing stance or horse stance. So that's going to be it for today's session. And we'll take some questions and close out.